Hello, my name is Barbara Mainhardt, and I am the Outreach Coordinator at the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation. Today, Christine Lombardo-Zaun, who is one of our attorney mediators, is joining me for the second in a three-part series about parental alienation syndrome. We previously just talked about what it was, kind of defined it, and talked about like how it exhibits. But today, we're actually going to be talking about the damage that it does to the children, which can be lifelong if not, taken care of early on. So, Christine, thank you for joining me, and let us find out how as parents, do you cope with this, and what is the damage to the children?
So usually with mediation, especially with Alpha, we start with a parenting agreement, and we take care of the children first. And I think a lot of parents come to the table with trying to do that, like, let's take care of the children. But what happens when everybody moves out and they go their separate ways? Well, the parental alienation can either be direct or indirect. It can be on purpose, intentional, or it could possibly be unintentional. And so you have to kind of be aware and be alert. So for example, the direct kind of parental alienation is obvious. If one parent is telling the other or talking about the other parent in front of the children, that's a direct alienation, and that's very easy to spot. But it's the subtle passive aggressive kinds that are really hard to spot. So for example, let's say daddy says to child, "Oh, mommy's taking me to court." Well, in the child's mind, they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, mommy is evil. Like, how could she do something like that?"
Or she could go to jail.
Right. And the child's thinking all these things, but then they don't hear the second part of that story, which is, well, why is mommy taking daddy to court? We don't know those reasons. It's not the child's business, but father has brought the child into the play because of discussing it with them. So that is damaging. And so what we've learned is that Mr. Gardner, who defined parental alienation, did a study and did a series of studies and interviewed children of alienated parents and found some very disturbing points, I guess. Mm-hmm. One of which is that when they're young, the children will target the alienated parent. Even if they have a close relationship, they almost turn on them because of the lies of the alienating parent. And so they also then, they could actually take this damage out on the extended family of the targeted parent. They could make false allegations against the parent. I had a case a number of years ago where the one parent had the 7-year-old child alleged that her grandfather on the other parent's side sexually abused her. This went to court. Children and youth in the county got involved, and it was over 1.5 years long for all of this to be cleared. And I will tell you, that poor child, the damage was horrific. But I had her in court. We were in closed quarters with the judge, and he interviewed her, and she admitted that she was lying and that her parent told her to say all of these things to get grandfather in trouble. So I will tell you, on there's a spectrum of parental alienation, and it goes from like horrible to not so horrible, but there's a big gap in between. The children actually believe that it's not the alienating parent doing it. They actually believe it's their own thoughts. And this comes from Gardner as well. And that's pretty scary.
It's almost like they've been brainwashed.
Yes, that is a perfect word for this concept. The children have been absolutely brainwashed. And there's no age discrimination here. So, I mean, you can start alienating as early as a child can start babbling, as old as an adult child that might have children of their own.
Oh my, I had
There's,
never thought about it starting there.
yes. So Gardner also studied, he interviewed adult children of alienation syndrome, but that were now adults. And
Mm-hmm.
what he found was also disturbing. These people, as adults, turned to drugs and alcohol, some of them. Some of them alienated their own family members. Some
Mm-hmm.
of them, sadly, ended up alienating their own children.
Mm-hmm. And do you think it's because they have a conflict about, you know, this whole alienation thing, that they, do you think deep down they might know that, you know, it's maybe not particularly correct, or is it just the amount of emotional damage?
I think there's a range of things that they can go through, but yeah, I agree with that. And definitely, for sure, I think a lot of them are probably confused. I mean, a child should not have to pick sides.
No. Mm-mm.
We know this as professionals, but they should not have to pick sides. And that's why mediation is so good, because we set the table and we're like, okay, here's your playing rules. But if you don't have playing rules, then it's like you make up as you go. And so the children that haven't been privileged enough to get parents of mediated settlements are suffering.
Ah.
I
Mhm.
also researched and found that these the children that grew up to be adults that were, victims of this, um, actually admitted that the alienating parent had abused them in one way or another:
Mhm.
sexual, physical, emotional. They've
Mhm.
been abused. I have also, unfortunately, seen that firsthand, and the damage is devastating. The effects could last a lifetime. And the reason we're doing these videos is so that we can alert as many people as we can, so that they can kind of have their radar on and can see if these things are happening, and that, to go and get help. One way to do that is to do a mediation.
Mhm.
Now you have a parental agreement, you have everything in writing, it's an enforceable document in the courts, and it's one step closer to, getting rid of the parental alienation. But I think we're going to talk about the things that we can do.
Yes. Mhm. Next video. Yeah, and that is a really great discussion, because I think that, as you alluded to earlier, some people, in the depths of their anger and hurt going through divorce, may not really understand, how much of a alienation syndrome model they are to their children, but others are fairly deliberate. So the kind of the result of our discussion today is that there's a lot of damage, and it can last forever. So it's very good to, like, if you can get people to stop, kind of stand back and say, what about the children? Do I might not ever want to speak to my ex again. However, I don't want the children to be caught in a crossfire.
Right. And, the goal here is to maintain some form of relationship with each parent as healthy as possible, as healthy as we can get that.
Mhm.
There's those cases where that's not possible, but with our experience, and I'm so thankful to work with our parenting coordinators. They are wonderful. They mediate wonderful parenting agreements, and my clients are happy. And then you know what happens? The kids are happy,
Mhm.
and everybody can move forward. And it's like, wow, it's a great way to move forward.
And I would think too, a mediated agreement means that both parents are contributing and participating in the creation of the agreement, as opposed to having the court say, this is what's going to happen. They're actually contributing to the decisions.
That's I think the biggest thing that I find that the clients really appreciate is the fact that they each have a voice and it is equally heard.
Yeah.
Because a mediator is neutral. I'm not taking sides with either party. They, but they're both heard. They
Yes.
both contribute, and that's important.
That's wonderful.
So it's
Christine,
almost like a
go
way
ahead.
to, I'm sorry, it's almost like a way to kind of like stifle the parental alienation, kind of stop it before it gets bad.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a really, really good point in the overall Alpha Center program. So, Christine, I would like to thank you so much for joining me today and kind of contributing, your thoughts on this and the experience that you have with it. And in part 3, we are going to try to bring out some coping mechanisms, some techniques. What can people do that, how can they kind of refute this, and what, how can it be happen? So thank you, and we will see you again soon.
My pleasure.